Good morning.
Good morning.
So, we've got a day of getting smart.
Yes, that's an ART.
There you go.
All right. I love it because we talked about this on my other podcast like a couple of months back.
So, you've already got all the information.
But am I using it?
So, first off, good morning to anyone and everyone who joins us today on the Dark Roast. Thank you so
Yes.
much. We are going to be discussing SMART goals, setting SMART goals, what they are, why they're important, and how to some tips and tricks to make them work best for you.
First things first, of course, what are SMART goals? So, SMART stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. So, all really important things to keep in mind. If you saw the video I did where I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire by the end of the year. And then the other character was like, cool, how you going to do it? And they have no idea, right? And so
Well, yeah.
often we do that where we set a goal and we have no roadmap of how we're getting there. We just believe that if we set the goal, if we write the goal down, we're going to get there. It'd be great if it worked that way. But 9 times out of 10, it doesn't.
No, and I mean, like an example of a SMART goal in your marketing or your affiliate business would be to maybe increase your revenue by 50% or 30% or whatever those numbers look like for you in a specific time frame. Okay, so like in the next 9 months. Then you get specific about that is how are you going to do that? So are you going to do email campaigns or blog posts and whatnot? And you can combine all that sort of information. And then measurable is where you track. And we're constantly harping on checking your analytics and reviewing your data because if you don't know what you're doing is working, you're just going to keep throwing gas on a fire that's not going anywhere.
Yep.
And you got to make it achievable, right?
Yes.
So achievable means that you literally can do it. I want to go to the moon. Well, that's great. But maybe that's not the goal you want, right? Maybe the
Yeah.
goal is to learn more. Or if you do want to go to the moon, then you're going to have to set some really long-term goals to make that, You don't just hop on Elon Musk's thing. You can't get it. You can't even get out of the atmosphere with that one.
Yeah.
And then it's got to be relevant. So your goals have to be relevant to what it is that you're actually trying to achieve. Growing your revenue aligns with your goal of building your affiliate marketing business. You need to be sure that your goals align with what, like your actions and whatnot align with whatever it is that your big outcome wants to be. And then time bound, like you said, you have to set a time frame and you have to really work towards that.
Yeah, I think time frame stresses a lot of people out because as the time comes closer, they start to get a little bit of anxiety about it. But the time frame is beneficial for multiple reasons. One, you can celebrate little wins, and if you're tracking properly, you might see that you're getting to your goal faster than you planned. And if you're getting there slower, that's okay. Just readjust and start figuring out where you need to make those tweaks and whatnot. But putting a time frame on it makes it more realistic and more tangible for us. So oftentimes people be like, "Oh yeah, I want to travel eventually," and then they never travel until they're retired and can't enjoy it as much. So putting that time frame on it gives you a little bit more discipline as well, because
Yeah,
you start to think about like, "Oh, well, I want to buy this." Like, well, but I don't because I'm saving for this theme.
absolutely. And you got to learn to be flexible with your time frame, right? Because
Yeah.
again, you never know what happens. Maybe a major life event happened in the middle, right? Maybe you're moving houses, or you've got a new addition to your family, or you've lost somebody in your family. These things are going to maybe throw some chinks into it. So if you're inflexible, that's going to make things a lot harder for you. Now, that doesn't mean that you're just willing to, whatever, right? But it just means that if something happens that comes along that changes your time frame, just be willing to renegotiate that time frame within yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, so often when we don't hit the goal or we have to adjust, we read it as a failure,
Mhm.
which is a mindset problem, right? So failures are just challenges. That's all it is. Chinks in the plan, things not going the right way. They're just challenges to overcome. And that's why we
Absolutely.
always say tweak, test, see what's working, see what's not. If it's a landing page, reach out to other people who are in marketing and ask for their advice. Like there's so many ways that you can get that information without it being such a negative.
We do have sort of a set of tips that you can follow. But before we get into the tips, I wanted to just sort of touch on why setting these SMART goals is important. Because a lot of times, especially when we're newer in online marketing or online business, we're a solopreneur, we're the only ones doing it. So we are a lot of times, not everybody, I mean, some people are natural planners, but a lot of people, we're seat of the pants, right? We're just throwing it all in there. We're throwing everything at the wall and hoping something sticks. By setting your SMART goals, this is going to help you have a plan, an action plan. And it doesn't have to be the biggest thing. You can take one piece, right? And you can set your SMART goals for that piece. And then as that grows, and then that way you can make smaller SMART goals. You can have an overarching one where I want to double or triple or whatever my business by the end of the year, or I want to make X amount of money by this amount of time, or have this many followers, or whatever it is that your goal is. But you can set small ones in between that will help you get to that goal, that big outcome goal. And it's just going to help you feel like you're more in control of what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get overwhelmed, especially when you're newer or if things aren't working. You think you're doing everything right, but nothing is working. It's really easy to get overwhelmed and confused and frustrated. But if you set your goals and work on them and have a really clear vision of what each of those goals are, it's going to make it so much easier for you. And also to know where you need to pivot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I
And it
just
can be
wanted,
frustrating. I get it. Like my goal is to have 100 subscribers with Ice Wellness by April.
yep.
But I've been having a hard time with both Facebook and Google ads getting it in front of the right audience. And that's frustrating because I'm like, okay, well, is it the audience is wrong? Is there something on the landing page that's deterring people? Is it, you go through a whole gambit of what could it be? But that is a very deep rabbit hole. So it's a lot easier to, like I said, tweak something here and there. Like maybe look at the location. Is it going to countries that are likely to not buy or have the ability to buy what you're trying to sell, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a sad reality that there's a lot of people out there that just aren't able to invest any kind of money into anything like affiliate marketing or like in my case the ice bath stuff. And so you have to be cognizant of that and maybe readjust where the targeting goes, or maybe throw in interests and hobbies to see if it's too wide a net. Casting a wide net can be beneficial, but if you're looking to really niche down and hit a very specific niche, start targeting down and start playing with that. So I've got, what's a wide net and one that runs very targeted just to try to figure out exactly how I'm going to find my audience outside of social media.
Yeah. And especially when you're doing ad spend, right? Because that wide net can get really expensive really fast if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So,
But that's why I check it every day and I
yeah.
tweak the budget too, like some days I'll put it up to $5. Some days I'll drop it to one just because again, yeah, you got to pay attention to what you have to invest in it and into your goals from a mental, physical, emotional, and financial aspect
And time,
and time. Yeah.
because if you're like our Justine, she works in the OR, right? And she works long hours and she's got some pretty crazy stuff. Same with Kirsten.
Mhm.
They work long hours. So they're building their business in addition to their quote unquote 9 to 5, which is, could be 10, 12 hours long. And there's lots of people that do that. So you have to factor in what amount of time that you have and then use that information to set a goal that's realistic.
Yeah.
Because if you only have, especially if you're, starting out or you're sort of intermediate at this, but you're still working, you might not have all the time to focus on that, especially if you have family or other commitments as well.
Yeah.
So your time frame may be longer. So just factor that into your goal setting instead of like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Well, you don't know their circumstances, right? For me, I'm lucky I get to be home now, right?
Yeah.
So I have more time. Other people don't have the time that I have. And so I have to be cognizant of that when I'm talking to people, and they have to be cognizant of that when they are setting their own goals.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a difference from between, like, well, I only have an hour to work on it because I have this crazy work schedule and I like my sleep's really important to me and I have this amount of time I need to spend with my family. And well, I don't have time because I go home and watch Netflix for 4 hours. It's a
Yeah,
very different story.
very different. Now, that's not anybody saying that you can't have some personal time, but recognize that if your personal time is non-productive, maybe you can steal an hour or two from that and put it towards something productive and still have a little bit of me time, right? So,
Yep, exactly.
okay. So, do you want to get into the tips that we've got going on here?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So, we're going to
We-
start at the top and go way down. And now we have discussed some of this already, but we'll just sort of quickly go over it. So, the first one is be specific. Clearly define what it is you want to achieve or what your goal is. And that is not, I want my affiliate marketing business to grow. That's not specific. What does grow mean? In what way do you want it to grow? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to reach more people? Do you want to do it by 50%, 100%? Do you want to, all those kinds of things? So saying, I want to increase my followers. I want to have 100,000 followers in the next 10 months. That's a specific goal, not I just want more followers. Well, one is more followers, right? So be specific.
Exactly. And make it measurable, right? Again, data, data, data. If you don't know what you're measuring, then you don't know if you're on the right track. So make sure that you choose the what metric are you going to measure it against? How are you going to measure it? How are you going to track it? All that kind of stuff, so that you can make sure that every day or every week or whatever it is, for you, that you can see that growth based on the metric you've chose.
And it's really going to help you just to feel more confident that what you're doing has impact or know where it needs changing. So ensure it's achievable. Okay. You set goals that are realistic. Again, don't try to go to the moon unless you're already an astronaut, in which case maybe that's a more realistic goal. But for most of us, that's not necessarily it, right? And that realistic, as we said, depends all on what you currently have. What are your resources right now? If you're suffering from a chronic fatigue syndrome, that's going to look different for you than somebody who's wired 24/7.
For sure.
It's just different, right? So just make sure that those goals are achievable with your own personal resources and what you have available.
Yes. And then keep it relevant, right? Make sure to align your goals with your objectives and your priorities. So if your goal is to hike the Grand Canyon, probably don't want to focus on kayaking all year. It's still
Exactly.
fitness, but it's not the right kind of fitness. So make sure that you are keeping these two themes very, very closely in line when you are setting them.
And if you're not sure, step back, take a look at it, and see how they connect to each other. Set deadlines. I am a deadline driven person. It allows you to set, get a time frame of what you want to do, and it does create a sense of urgency, but it also creates a sense of knowing where your goal line is, right? Where the finish line is, because if you're just going and you don't know where or when to stop, you're going to run out of gas. You're not going to feel accomplished in any way. And you can always set new goalposts, but
And you
at least
should
if you,
be, right?
yeah, yeah. And so it also lets you track, right? If you know
Yeah,
where your end line is, you can track how far you've come.
exactly. Yep. Create an action plan. So again, hiking the Grand Canyon is great, but if you don't know how to get there, it's probably not gonna do anything, right? So an action plan is like a roadmap. It's your steps to success. It's how am I gonna navigate there? So absolutely have an action plan in mind, because again, then you're not throwing something out the wall and hoping it sticks and then going, okay, well, what do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? You can look at it and go, okay, well, next I need to focus on this. Now I need to focus on this. And that is how you get to your goal.
And your action plans can be daily, weekly, and monthly. Your daily action plan is what sort of keeps you on your path. And then, yeah, you can have your weeklies and your monthlies until you reach your goal so that you know really always where you're supposed to be going. So you never really get too far off your path.
Yeah.
And then we already touched on this, which is stay flexible, be open to adjusting your goals and your action plan if you need to. If you find that you've sort of overcommitted yourself on your daily action plan, adjust it, make it work better for you. Because life happens, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
what worked today might not work tomorrow.
Yep. Life happens, shift happens.
Very much so.
Change is inevitable. Then again, track your progress, right? If you're, gonna revert back to the Grand Canyon theme. If you're trying to make sure that you are upping your baseline or making sure that your heart rate's right, all that kind of stuff, you're going to be tracking your data hardcore and you're going to be looking back at it going, okay, well, last month I could only run 10 miles. This month I'm able to run 12 miles and keep my beats per minute the same or whatever it is. If you're not tracking the progress, it's going to feel like you're a hamster in a wheel getting nowhere.
And that works for pretty much anything. Even with fitness or weight loss, they tell you track your progress in multiple ways, not just the number on the scale, right? Fitness is the same thing. Like, you step on the elliptical for the first time, you can do 5 minutes,
Yep.
and in 2 weeks, next thing you know, you're doing 20 minutes. Now, maybe your goal is to do an hour. That's crazy, but whatever. Maybe your goal is to do an hour. If you're at 20 minutes, tracking your progress is saying, okay, well, when I first got on this, I couldn't do it more than 5 minutes, but I'm already up to 20. Not, oh man, I wanted to do an hour. Look at how far I have to go. It's look at how far I've come.
Yeah. And
I think
celebrate
that's really,
those little successes.
and I think it's really important because people tend to look at where they're going and not how far they've come to get where they're going. And that can get really disheartening if you're not paying attention to all the successes that you've created along the way. So the next one is support.
Yes.
You touched on that just a moment ago, but yeah, ask for support. That's what mentors are for. So if you are in the marketing, you are going to have people that you surround yourself with. And if you don't, then you should absolutely get some. Either whether it's a group, whether it's a coaching program, whether it's a mentorship, whatever it is, get yourself some people that you can have around you. Because like you posted, I think it was early this week or maybe it was late last week. I don't know. It shows up on my Facebook feed at random times about the people who support you the most are not your family and friends. And that's generally the case. Your family and friends might be great, good job. But they're not the ones that are actually there to help lift you up. And especially when you're trying to achieve certain goals that they just don't understand. So, make sure that you have those people around you because they are going to be your cheerleaders. They're going to be the people that you can go to for advice when you're stuck. They're going to be the people to help educate you in areas where you may not necessarily be doing the right things and just need a little course correction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And especially too, remember that like your goals and what you're trying to do, your family and friends might not understand, right? Especially if you're coming from a friend circle that are enablers. There's a lot of enablers out there, but they're not going to understand your success and they might not want to see you succeed because they know that means they're going to get left behind. And not necessarily intentionally. I'm not saying every successful person has to change their friend group, but the conversation changes as you set these goals, as you better yourself and whatnot. So you stop hanging out with the people who don't want to better themselves and who don't understand what you're doing and just try to tear you back down. And so be cognizant of that. Like your support structure is gonna change, and that's okay. When you have to shed your old skin before you can really grow into your new skin. So
Yep, you are a seed. And
yes.
sometimes that's pretty violent because a seed, it basically explodes before it becomes a plant of some sort. So it can be very hard. But that doesn't mean you have to dump everybody all at once or anything like that, unless they are really detrimental to you, in which case, absolutely, you might want to ditch those people. And you'll know pretty quickly which ones are actually trying to sabotage your success and the ones that are just sort of, ambivalent to it. They don't really care. right?
And of course, yes, stay
Yeah,
committed,
you go,
right?
you go. Yeah.
We talk about this all the time where like the idea is what's going to motivate you, but discipline is what's going to keep you going. And so many people are like, well, I'm just not motivated. No, you're not disciplined. There's a difference. So stay committed. I've had people ask me multiple times over the last 3 years, like, well, why don't you just quit? You're obviously not like a millionaire yet. One, being a millionaire is not my goal. So, haha, joke's on you. But two, I believe in ice wellness. I believe in what I'm doing to build a better life for my dogs and my significant other. I believe in the things I'm doing. So I'm not going to quit because I know that it works, right? We are in a world where inflation's going crazy. I've got big goals that don't, require me not to be reliant on some boss or some corporation. So for me, there is no stopping because I know that there's not a job in the world that's going to get me where I want to be. There's just not, unless I create it myself.
I absolutely agree on that. And staying committed, that's again goes back to having support because that will help you stay committed in those times. Because we all, I don't care how positive you are going to have moments where you're like, where's that towel? I want to throw it in. Right.
Yep.
And
Been there
also, like,
multiple times.
yes, and I'm the same, like I go through periods of like, why the hell? But I've done that my entire life, like I've had lots of moments in my life growing up and growing old and having, with the kids and everything else where I've had moments where I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I stop and I think, well, why am I doing this? Why did I move out at
Mm.
16? Because I needed to. I realized that situation that where I was just not going to work for me. So I needed to do that, which meant that I had to work hard and I had to make mistakes and I had to do all those things. When I had kids, being a single parent, you don't get to just walk away, right? Now you can make you a shitty parent. Don't do that. But
Yeah.
I was lucky. I had good friends and I had good support, and that helped me through those times when I was just like, I am too tired to deal with this right now. And then, yeah, finally for me, the big one now for this is simply because, yeah, I'm done working for other people because I've done it all my life. Literally, like I started babysitting at 9. I had my first job as a taxi cab dispatcher at 12. I was a hotel desk clerk by the time I was 13. By the time I was 14, I had 4 jobs. It's like,
Mhm.
why do I want to keep working for other people when they can just cut me at any given time? I can't rely on them for anything. Because even when I, had long-term jobs where I got to stay for several years, they still, a company goes out of business, a department gets dissolved, and you have no recourse. And the older you get, the more screwed you get.
We're seeing it really heavily right now in the real estate industry because obviously real estate's slowed down a lot. And there's plenty of title companies that we work with and whatnot who are just laying people off right and left. The pandemic opened a lot of people's eyes, and that's why the surge of affiliate marketing in the last 4 years has really happened because when the pandemic hit and all these people were told, well, you're not essential, so bye. And they had to figure out what to do to not get evicted and to make ends meet, like that opened a lot of people's eyes to, oh, yeah, I really am replaceable as far as my job's concerned, but I'm not replaceable to my family.
Yeah.
So, and build a lifestyle that fits that. Like, build a lifestyle that lets you have time with your family. That's my whole spiel. Like, especially with my dogs, right? I've got 4 of the little furballs. I do hardcore training with them, and I want to be able to take them out whatever the heck I want, to the lake, to the mountain, to go hiking, to go biking, whatever it is. And there's just not a job in the world that's gonna be like, oh yeah, we're gonna pay you today. That's fine. But yeah, you take the dogs and go biking. That sounds lovely, right? It's just not gonna happen.
So that really helps you stay committed. Once you realize and you recognize what those things are, that's what's going to keep you not motivated, but dedicated, like you said, right? That's where your drive comes from. It doesn't come from, oh, I'm going to get up and every day I'm going to be motivated to go to the gym. No, you're not.
Your
The-
overall why is what's gonna drive
yeah,
it.
that goal, that purpose of what it is, and the more specific it is, the easier it is for you to stay committed because you can see it, and it's not just a big dream. I want to live the lavish lifestyle. Well, that's no clarity in that. You need to bring that down. And what does that really look like? And how are you going to achieve that? Because lavish for somebody for one person might be boats and beaches and everything else, and lavish for somebody else might be a nice home in the woods with their own creek. And yeah, it really is very different. So you can't just have that open ended. You really need to break that down. And that's where your SMART goals are going to come in play, because they're going to really help you focus that. We have a couple of little things that we're going to add on. There's an article that I was reading. Rose hates it, but and it's by utilizing your 5 whys to narrow down your focus and uncover that purpose and that reason of your goal. So I'm going to put a link to that in, and also a simple free downloadable SMART goals. It's a Google Doc template. I believe that they also have a Word document template in the same place. But Google Doc just allows you to get it from anywhere, so that you can start building out your SMART goals really simply, and really start breaking that down so that you can do the best that you want to do and create the future that you want to create.
Love it. Love it so much. And then next week, guys, we're going to be talking about video marketing strategies. I love this. And you, like, Dawna's fantastic at this as well. We love our video marketing. Well, you love editing the video marketing. I think I love being in the video marketing.
I'm such a behind the scenes person. It's crazy. I'm definitely more of an educator than a front man. It's becoming more and more clear that is where I am the most comfortable.
But regardless, video marketing is huge because we consume data so quickly now, and our attention spans are just so. Video marketing strategies are going to be super, super important if you're building out any kind of business.
Absolutely. And I mean, you see it all the time with the user generated content, the reels, the stories, the YouTube faceless content, as well as personal content. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all really heavily relying on that video content. So if you are someone who's just new getting towards that, don't really know what you're going to do, don't really know how to do it, or maybe you do, but you want some more assistance in or information on what tools are out there and available to you, join in next week.
Yep. Or how to make it easy to cross-platform post if you don't want to create a different, video for every platform.
Absolutely. Our program that Rose and I are both in, our coaching program, actually has some excellent training on that. That's just one of the many things that they do have available, as well as the coaching and the support and all of those things. Actually, everything we've discussed today is in there. Yeah. So it's if you're curious, just reach out to us and ask for more information. Rose and I are both available, and as always, like I say, we each have our own skill sets, so it doesn't really matter which one you reach out to, depending on what it is you need. And we look forward to seeing you next week. If you did catch this on replay, please drop a replay. If you have any questions, comments, or anything you'd like to see us talk about in the future, also drop that in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. That's it. That's all, guys.